UFC 303 was one of the most boring, most exciting, most controversial cards we have ever had in history. It started with Conor McGregor, the greatest comeback in the history of sports. That fight was canceled. Alex Poatan Pereira steps up. He's fighting Garry Prochazka in a rematch in the main event. We have a brand new co-main event out of nowhere. And a few hours ago, that co-main event drops. At the weigh-ins, we had some drama. They changed the weight classes, but everything was still good. Everybody weighed in. We were still good. We had a fight. We had a co-main event. While we were at the arena, while I was pouring drinks down my throat right here in Las Vegas, they very sneakily announced that the co-main event has changed. Danny Gay stepping up on 2 hours' notice, the shortest notice in the history of the UFC in the modern non-tournament era, stepped up, walked into that octagon, and we had a brand new co-main event. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I am here right now in Las Vegas, and I'm going to recap the entire UFC 303 fight card. I'm in Las Vegas. You're not going to get the normal, very pretty, nice to look at slideshow with the good graphics. That's just not going to happen. I'm here in my room. I have been drinking since 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I ate what felt like 19 slices of pizza to get solid enough to walk you through this. But I was here live at the fights. We had the VIP experience. We saw the fights. We were in and out of our seats in the VIP lounge. And I saw every single fight, and I'm going to recap it right now. Jakey Boy dominated. Jacob, my little partner in crime, my little baby redhead friend, the guy who bought the tickets to this, dominated. He had one single missed pick. He almost picked a perfect card. The only missed pick he had was Mayra Bueno Silva, and that was a TKO cut. If it wasn't for the cut, that fight's not getting stopped, and she was winning that fight. But we'll walk through that. My bets did well. The safety parlay hit. Jacob's underdog lock of the week hit. Overall, a spectacular night. Premium members got the bets. Lots of craziness. The Diego Lopez bets, all the parlays, all the bets, everything we had, those all got refunded because that fight was scrapped. And Brian Ortega was gone. They brought in Danny Gay. But all in all, tonight was a phenomenal night as far as picks and bets were concerned. But let's talk about the actual fights. I am going to be looking at my phone. I don't have a slide deck. I don't have any of that prepared. I am sitting in my room at a table staring into a DJI Osmos Pocket 3 camera giving you this recap. But opening up the UFC 303 fight card, we have Vinicius Oliveira taking on Ricky Simón. Jacob's underdog lock of the week was Vinicius Oliveira. And he won that fight. It was very clear he won that fight. It seemed pretty obvious. I don't think there was any controversy in that whatsoever. Ricky Simón had a couple of takedowns but did nothing with him. Vinicius Oliveira was able to defend the majority of the takedowns, land the more meaningful shots, and make something happen. What was surprising to me is that Vinicius Oliveira stands insanely tall. He stands very tall. He stands very vertical, and he was still able to defend those takedowns. That's surprising to me. The other thing that was surprising to me is that Ricky Simón wasn't all in on the takedowns. He entertained the striking far too long. It was not an exciting fight, but I don't know who to blame. I don't know who to blame for that to not be an exciting fight. Because Vinicius Oliveira defended takedowns, threw hard, did a few spinning attacks, didn't land. Ricky Simón moved forward, had some success every now and then landing, but didn't do too much with it. But Vinicius Oliveira won. Jacob's underdog lock of the week hit again. And Ricky Simón, a 2-1 favorite, lost. And if you remember the breakdown, I was like, this guy's on a 2-fight skid, and how many times have we seen people work their way up the ladder, lose a couple of fights, and never be the same? And that was my concern for Ricky Simón. And that's where we ended up. So I had no bets on that. Jacob obviously did because Vinicius was his underdog lock of the week. The next fight of the night was the first leg of the safety parlay. Tonight was a wild night. We're here in person. Obviously, Jacob is dialed in to the lock of the week. I'm dialed into the safety parlay. The first 3 fights on this entire card. The first fight, lock of the week. The second fight, the first leg of the safety parlay. And the third fight was the second leg of the safety parlay. Luckily for us, the safety parlay hit. Right to Tsuruya was the first leg of the safety parlay. And my whole rule, everything I talked about in my quick picks video was Right to Tsuruya dominates this fight. Right to Tsuruya is the pick, but I can't put him in the safety parlay because he's a UFC debut and we have rules. I ultimately ended up putting him in the safety parlay because I looked at the card and there wasn't anybody I was wildly confident in that I wasn't already exposed to. But Rai Tsuruya won that fight. But he also reminded us why we don't put UFC debuts in safety parlays. He won the fight. It was clear. I thought he won that fight. I wasn't worried about that decision. At the same time, dude lateral dropped. Lat dropped his opponent, Carlos Hernandez. Looked good. First lat drop looked fantastic. Second, landed flat on his back. Was mounted. Was controlled. Rai Tsuruya is very, very good. But he's a bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd at times. He puts himself in harm's way. He does some weird things. You don't know if you can fully trust him. He's very, very young. He's improving very quickly. He won that fight. It was clear he won that fight, but he won it because of grappling. Striking really wasn't there at all. And he has no problem grappling off of his back, which on one hand is great, good for you. On the other hand, it's like, you're not going to put yourself in bad positions to try to win these fights, are you? Either way, Rai Tsuruya won that fight, and I'm happy that he did. The second leg of the safety parlay was the Andre Arlovski-Martin Buday fight. That fight sucked. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of this card sucked. If I wasn't here in person, 90% drunk off free alcohol in the VIP lounge, I'd be like, this is a disappointing-ass fight. This card wasn't great. It was top-heavy, and it ultimately had a phenomenal ending. But it didn't start very hot. At all. Martin Buday is not that good. He's not that guy. You fought a 45-year-old man, and you were playing cage control? It was a cage control game against a 45-year-old man. Andre Arlovski used that veteran savvy. He closed the distance. He kelped that distance. That space was gone. There was no space whatsoever. Andre Arlovski held Martin Buday against the cage. Kept him there. And if I'm a judge, that scores well for me. I'm an old school judging criteria kind of guy. I've been watching this since day one. And I have not evolved the way that the rest of the judges have. And you guys let me know in the comments very, very clearly. There wasn't a ton of damage in that fight, but when they did throw hands, it was clear that Martin was looking for a finish and Andre wasn't. When they were in the clinch, Martin was throwing up big knees. Andre was looking to get it against the cage and for control. It was a split decision. I don't think it should have been a split. Should have been a 29-28 for Martin, but at the end of the day, that's not the performance. You're supposed to be the next big guy. You barely beat a 45-year-old. Not a great look for Martin Buday. Then we had Jillian Robertson versus Michelle Waterson. First of all, Michelle Waterson retired. That was it. She retired. She said goodbye. And I got to be honest with you. At this point, the safety parlay had already hit. The lock of the week had hit. And I was like, bottoms up, boys. Bottoms up. Oh, I don't need to be here for... We're good. The two most important things happened, so we're good. So we went back from our seats up to the VIP lounge where they had an open bar. And I was boozing. But I did watch this fight. I am a Michelle Waterson fan. I remember Michelle Waterson from back in the day. I remember Michelle Waterson when she was on American Ninja Warrior, where she failed almost instantly, and that was quite disappointing. But Michelle Waterson is a fighter that put herself in harm's way for our benefit many, many times. She lost this fight very, very clearly. She was taken down way too easily. And yeah, her defense is spectacular, right? Her submission defense was there. Takedown defense was not. It was okay, but it just wasn't there. But we knew that coming into this fight, right? We knew that Michelle Waterson was here because she was here, because she likes competing. She was here just, there's a paycheck, and they offered her a fight, and she doesn't want to give up on it just yet. But she's not all in. She's got kids. She's got a family. She has a whole life outside of the octagon, and that was obvious. But I will say, it was oddly emotional. Being in the VIP lounge and watching, like, we were basically eye level with the giant screen up top. And it was oddly emotional. They had a montage ready to go, so they knew she was going to retire. Or at least they had an idea that she might. And it was oddly emotional watching that. And I was making a point to watch her watch that. And if you're her, like, think about this. Put yourself in her shoes for a second. She's standing in the octagon. She just lost a fight. What is her last fight in the UFC? And she's standing in the octagon, looking up, watching the screen, and it was her best highlights. Her going to war 10 years ago, 15 years ago, looking way younger, way faster, and she immediately turned her head, put her face in the Joe Rogan shoulder, and started crying. It was oddly emotional just to watch that. But Michelle Waterson, thanks for the memories, frankly. Like, we watch this sport because we love fistfights. And it's easy to be like, this person sucks, that person sucks, I bet this side, I bet that side. But at the end of the day, they put themselves in harm's way for our entertainment. And Michelle Waterson, appreciate everything you've done for us. Jillian Robertson, not that good. She's not that good. I can't say submission or bust because she did just win a decision. But frankly, you got those takedowns. You had those positions and you couldn't finish. You couldn't finish there. Jillian Robertson's not outstriking anybody anytime soon. And if she can drag you to the ground, then good for her. But if she can't, there's going to be problems. I think Jillian Robertson is like somewhere in the middle of the pack. I'm interested to see like what her next matchup is and who she's going to fight next and where she's going. But that was a gift-ish matchup for her, and she did what she was supposed to do. Then we have Peyton Talbot versus Giannis Kimori. Peyton Talbot smoked that dude, knocked him out in 10 seconds, 14 seconds, something absurd like that. He did a video on YouTube, this is how you beat me, and then knocked that dude out clean, fast, and in a hurry. On one hand, wildly exciting, good for him. The dude's good looking, was a minus 2,000 favorite and looked like it. On the other hand, you don't learn much, right? You get a 15-second knockout, you don't learn anything from that. You want to see some of these young prospects in a little bit of trouble. You want to see them work through something. Like, you want to see them do something other than land that, like, really clean, immediate strike. So, I don't know. I mean, Peyton Talbot is good looking. He's a guy that the UFC is going to want to push. He obviously has some power in his hands. We know how good he is from a couple of previous fights. The win over Cameron Saman was fantastic. So I can only assume that Peyton Talbot is that guy. Good for him. Great win. Let's step up his level of competition just a touch. We need superstars. We need people the UFC can build. So don't rush them to the top. But we got to step it up just a little bit. After the Peyton Talbot fight, we had Jean Silva versus Charles Jourdain. Jean Silva smoked that fool. Smoked him. Jacob and I both picked Jean Silva. Charles Jourdain is a fan favorite. He's a ton of fun to watch. I was in the elevator with Charles Jourdain yesterday at weight cut. I got in the elevator in the morning, went downstairs to get my coffee. He hopped in, just finished the sauna, was wrapped in a towel, had his whole team with him. I said, good luck. He said, thank you, and he moved on. Seemed like a super nice guy. But we were pretty sure that this was going to be a striking matchup. And Charles Jourdain is a fun striker, an exciting striker, but not the better striker in that matchup. Jean Silva made it happen, got it done, finished Charles Jourdain, who is typically pretty durable. So the question now becomes is how good is Jean Silva? I don't know. He's a very good kickboxer that has been able to defend the takedowns, at least so far. So I'm curious what Jean Silva's future looks like, but he got the win. He made it look somewhat easy, frankly, against a guy that's pretty durable and pretty exciting. So Jean Silva, good for him. We both picked him. Happy for that. Andre Fili versus Cub Swanson. Apparently, this was a very controversial decision. We got multiple messages. Robbery, robbery, robbery. Comments, robbery, robbery. And it felt back and forth. I'm going to be honest with you. At this point in time, Shogun, famous Shogun, and Mark Coleman entered the VIP lounge. So yeah, we were chatting it up, talking to them, sort of in and out watching this fight. But every time I looked over and started watching this fight, it just felt like Andre was a little faster. Got to the punch a little sooner. Was having a little bit more success. So it looked to me like Andre Fili won that fight. But based off the comments and the DMs and everything, it seemed like Cub Swanson had a little more success than we thought he should. Frankly, Jacob and I were very clear from day one. Andre Fili at minus 240, minus 250, minus 260, minus 300, wherever he ended up for you, never made sense. Because Cub Swanson is still a good fighter. He's an exciting fighter. He's a durable guy. He's been around the block 100 times over. Andre Fili is chinny. Andre Fili's not a guy that you can lay out that kind of money. But I thought, with what I saw, that Andre Fili won that fight. It didn't seem like a robbery to me. But again, I was in and out. We were talking to people, doing that whole thing. But Cub Swanson's an absolute legend. I'm glad he did not retire on the spot. But him and Andrei Arlovski have to be next. We can't have a ton of fights left with them. Then we had Joe Pyfer, Marc-Andre Barrault. Jacob and I both picked Joe Pyfer. And now we know he is that guy. He's got that power. He's got that power. Joe Pyfer landed those punches. Has the power, made it happen. Joe Pyfer could, quite frankly, be that guy. So Good for Joe Pyfer. He finished a pretty durable, historically pretty durable Marc-Andre Barreau. I'm not a giant Joe Pyfer fan. I think it's just his, and this is going to sound dumb as shit, I think it's just his general negativity. The dude is like a negative Nancy. Every interview, just angry. I'm not shaking anybody's hands. You want to shake mine, I'll shake yours. But I'm not going to, just shut the fuck. Just kind of a negative Nancy. But he does have absolute straight up power in his hands. Good solid pinpoint accuracy. And if he's going to fight a striker that will let him do his thing, he's going to land clean. And that's what he did to Marc-Andre Barreau. Marc-Andre is a guy that's typically pretty durable, and Joe Pyfer made it look easy. Chris Curtis with the fantastic counter striking and the left hook couldn't get rid of Marc-Andre, and Joe Pyfer did, and he did it pretty quickly, and he made it look easy. Opening up the main card, we had Ian Garry and Michael Venom Page. That was a 29-28. Frankly, where I was sitting, looked like a 30-27 for Ian Garry. And the grappling was the difference. Striking-wise, it felt like Michael Venom Page was winning the striking exchanges, but there wasn't really enough action to care. When he did land, when he did cover distance, he connected. He connected against Ian a few times. He closed the distance, landed. In the first round or the second round, whenever it was, when he got taken down, he threw a kick, Ian caught it, went to the ground with him. Sort of mounted, half took his back, worked from there. That round was gone. Third round, similar situation. And it wasn't a Michael Venom Page mistake in the third round. Ian Garry closed the distance and then got it from there. And what's interesting is this is supposed to be fantastic striker versus fantastic striker. But what we ended up getting was Michael Venom Page, fantastic striker, who we know is patient, who we know takes his time, who we know doesn't fully commit. He's not an all-out kind of guy. Versus Ian Garry, who went the smarter route. And honestly, and this is a take that you guys aren't going to love, especially if you spent $80 on this pay-per-view, but that was the way to go. If you're Ian Garry, winning is the most important thing, not being exciting. Because if Ian Garry lost, fans are not forgiving. Not in this sport. You guys are watching this waiting for me and Jacob to slip up so you can write some horrific shit in the comment section. Imagine being Ian Garry, the guy who was already called a cuck, who's already called all these names because he has an older wife that wrote a book and he lives... There's a lot of things. The older wife that wrote a book and he lives with his wife's ex-husband. I get it. It's a little bizarre. But you guys are waiting for that dude to slip up so you can jump down his throat and make him feel like the biggest loser that's ever walked the face of the earth. So if you're Ian Garry, the most important thing to do is win. And that is what he did. Was it exciting? No, that fight sucked. Did he get the win? Yes, he did. And he's still undefeated. He's still working his way up. And he's still going to get booed and all of those things. He didn't do himself any favors by not winning this fight. But what he did show is that he's willing to take the fight where it needs to go. If it was wrestling, it was wrestling. If it was grappling, it was grappling. If it was striking, he was there. He got hit a few times. He got hit clean. Didn't seem wobbled by it. MVP put on a show. MVP's a guy that we bumped into a whole bunch of times this week. I don't know why, but he was up and down the elevator a whole bunch. Super friendly guy, super nice guy, just seemed happy to be here. None of that has any bearing on the fight breakdown, just wanted to mention it, I guess. But MVP, I like him. I'm a fan of his. I was a fan of his in Bellator. I'm looking forward to both of their next fights. You got to give Ian Garry somebody that matters in the division so we can find out how good he is or is not. And MVP, he's 37 years old. You got to give MVP people that he can beat, people he can be excited with. He's not going to be a champion. He's not going to be a UFC champion. Don't waste our time pretending he's going to be. Don't put him on a trajectory to a title that he's never going to get. Give him exciting fights. Give him fights with other strikers who will stand there, because that Kevin Holland fight was fun. Give him fights just like that. Then we had the Mayra Bueno Silva Macy Chiasson fight. Thank God I didn't have the over 2.5 on that fight. I had a little tiny bit of a parlay with that over 2.5, but thank God I didn't put it in the safety parlay, because that was something I looked at. Because I was like, you know what? Macy Chiasson's not dangerous. Mayra Bueno Silva's not dangerous. The over 2.5 here makes a lot of sense. This is a fight that should go the distance. I think Macy wins, but I think she wins just with cage control and takedowns. And that is not a recipe for a finish. But that's not what we got. What we got was Mayra Bueno Silva controlling the fight. She was winning that fight. She was winning the striking exchanges. She was defending against the cage. She was circling her way out. She was landing clean, landing hard. Mayra Bueno Silva was absolutely winning that fight. And then there was a takedown, and Macy landed a clean elbow, and the cut on Mayra Bueno Silva's head was... I'm a big dude. This is a big pinky. The cut, my pinky would have fit in there no problem whatsoever. It was a big-ass cut. We tried to start a let her fight chant. The chant took off in our section, but it didn't go far enough for the doctor to give a shit. That was an interesting fight, though, because Mayra Bueno Silva was clearly winning. There was a bad cut, and they called it because of the cut. And that's what makes this sport unique, because it's going to go down as a loss. And Mayra Bueno Silva made half the money. We've talked about this before. The way fighters make their money is, let's say you're on a 50 grand and 50 grand contract. Mayra Bueno Silva got 50 grand to show up to walk into the octagon. Here's your 50 grand. Her other 50 grand is based off of winning. She has to win to get that money. And she was winning that fight. And it was stopped. And it should have been stopped. That was a nasty cut. That was not a clean, good cut. That was a bad cut. But she missed out on half that money because of that cut, even though she was winning that fight. I don't know what happens in the locker room. I don't know if Dana's just going to give her some money behind the scenes because he's been known to do that. But frankly, sucks for Mayra Bueno Silva. Went into that fight, was winning that fight, was doing the right things, got taken down, gave up a takedown, got a cut, and that's it. Derails her entire career. Now she's on 2 losses in a row. It's on a skid. Was just technically finished in a fight. Not a great look. It's a weird sport. Luckily, hopefully, myself, Jacob, you guys watching, the fans will remember that she was winning this fight and she got cut. And that context is very important because we might get some good value on her in her next fight, because the reality is I picked Macy to win. She did win. When I picked her, she was a good size underdog. So there was money to be made. And if you watched the video and you tailed, there was money to be made. But Macy was not winning that fight. And yes, she landed the elbow and it was a clean, no issues, not controversial at all, but dicey. Dicey, because she was not winning that fight. Then we had Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. Boring fight. Honestly, this card kind of sucked. This was not a good card. This wasn't an exciting card. This card sucked. I was there in person. Jacob was there in person. We had free drinks. We had VIP lounge. That cushioned the blow a little bit. But if I was home filming a Fight Foods vlog in my media room with my friends over, we'd be struggling. We'd be struggling. This was not a great card. And this fight sucked. On one hand, you got to give them credit. Both Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze stepped up on short notice. Both of them. So you got to give them credit. Thank you guys for showing up and making something happen. And that's a sincere statement. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anthony Smith has put himself in harm's way time and time again. Thank you for that. If we don't appreciate that, what are we doing here? And if I keep blinking like this, it's not because I'm on the spectrum. It's because my eyes are insanely dry. It is midnight local time, and I don't know if I've had a water this whole trip. But Roman Dolidze is a world champion grappler. Anytime we've seen him on the ground, it was spectacular. He had people almost finished, almost immediately, anytime he was on the ground. But what did he do in this fight? Move forward and chase the big right hand. That was the entire fight. Moving forward, chasing the big right hand. It was a close fight. The only reason Anthony Smith lost was because he got exhausted. He was breathing real heavy, mouth open, the whole thing. But Anthony Smith didn't do anything meaningful. Roman Dolidze didn't really do anything meaningful. This fight sucked. It was a boring fight. They do have some history. They've trained together in the past. I would say there's a bit of a factor there, but I don't think so. Because there was a point where Roman was really trying to put Anthony out. Trying to get rid of him. Trying to knock him out. Trying to finish him. So Roman didn't seem to care. Anthony didn't seem to care. It just was not an exciting fight. And you got to just move on, right? They both stepped up on short notice. Tried to save this card. This was a Conor McGregor card. And the UFC's biggest mistake was top-heavy card. Oh, Conor McGregor's the biggest star on this planet. Anybody, they'll pay whatever. These guys are idiots. Fans are idiots. They'll pay whatever amount of money they need to pay to watch Conor McGregor fight. And then he literally broke his pinky toe, didn't fight, and the UFC was like, oh shit, this fight card sucks. So then they just slap something together. Anthony Smith, will you show up? Thank you so much. Roman, thank you so much. Co-main event, thank you. Alex Pereira, please save the second card in 3 months for us. And that's what happened. Because the co-main event, some of the most wild drama I've ever seen. Halfway through the night. We are in the VIP lounge. Brandon Moreno is hanging out. We saw on the screen, they just announced there's a new co-main event. A new co-main event. Brian Ortega was done. Dropped out of the fight, done. They just slipped in Dan Ige. I don't know where he came from. I don't know. The fact that they made that happen is astonishing. It's astonishing. And you have to give credit to a lot of people. The commission for being as flexible as they were. Diego Lopez for being as flexible he is. And then Dan Ige for being as flexible as he is. I don't know what Dan Ige was doing. I don't know why he was here. I know nothing. All I know is that Dan Ige, on 2-3 hours notice, stepped up and fought in the co-main event on a pay-per-view. And fought his ass off. Dan Ige is the unsung hero of this card. And Dan Ige deserves all the appreciation in the world. I tried to start a thank you Dan chant. I was going, thank you Dan. And it got a little bit of traction, but there were people next to me. There were gingers wearing full Brazil outfits sitting next to me. Gingers. That didn't appreciate that because they were Diego Lopez fans. And I said, listen, Ginger, don't you understand what's happening here? You don't get to watch your precious Diego Lopez if Dan Ige doesn't step up. If Dan Ige doesn't step up in a wild situation on insanely short notice right now, you don't get to watch Diego Lopez fight. So instead of cheering for Diego Lopez, which you should do, but instead of going down that route, let's show Dan Ige the most amount of appreciation we can show anybody. That entire arena should have been screaming Dan Ige's name. It should have been appreciation end to end. Even if you're Diego Lopez's mother, you should be thanking Dan Ige for taking that fight on short notice and showing up, because your son doesn't fight or get paid if Dan Ige doesn't show up. Dan Ige is the unsung hero of UFC 303. There was a lot of people on that card that showed up on short notice, but nobody as short of notice as Dan Ige. 3 hours? That's nuts. That's nuts. And my takeaway from that fight, it's a tough spot for both of them. You could look at that and be like, Diego Lopez didn't finish Danny. Dude, Dan Ige is one of the most durable guys in that division. You're not going to finish Dan Ige. Not in the feet. Maybe you could submit it. You're not going to finish him on the feet. And Diego Lopez was headhunting a bit, swinging a bit wild, trying to make something happen. Diego Lopez was winning some of those grappling exchanges, but Dan Ige had a nice third round. Won the third round. 3 hours short notice, won the third round. But I can't leave that fight judging Diego Lopez because, frankly, he had the same wild ride that Dan Ige had. Dan Ige actually probably had an easier weekend. Hey, Dan, you want to fight? No, fuck it, I'll fight. But Diego Lopez had a full training camp. Ish. Right? A couple of weeks ago, they said, do you want to be in a co-main event against one of the biggest superstars? One of the biggest guys in this division? Yes, I'll do it. The biggest opportunity of Diego Lopez's career, probably 3 weeks ago, so obviously not a full training camp. I was being facetious there. But he accepted that fight a few weeks ago. Came to Vegas. Did all the things. Then he got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning the night before weigh-ins. Was asleep in his bed. Got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, your opponent can't make 145. Will you do 155? And he said yes. I don't know about you, but if you wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you give me some wild news like that, you can't just close your eyes and fall back asleep like nothing happened. That's not how that works. I imagine he was stressed to the max after that. Then he had to weigh in at 155. Then the next day, getting ready. Okay, I have a fight. It is what it is. I'm going to fight. We're good. Co-main event. Pay-per-view. The biggest fight of my entire career. Then you get a call a couple hours before you're supposed to fight. Hey, your opponent dropped. Will you fight this guy instead? You can't watch that fight and judge Diego Lopez What you can do is congratulate both of them. Diego Lopez for winning, good job. Diego Lopez for accepting that fight on short notice, because he also accepted that fight on short notice. And Dan Ige for being Dan Ige, for being the boss man that he is, for doing what he did, stepping up on the most short notice situation in the modern era of MMA and UFC. Dan Ige, we appreciate you. He got the cheers on the way out of the arena. I was hoping he would get them in the middle of the fight, because without Dan Ige, we don't have a co-main event. There's literally no co-main event if Dan Ige doesn't step up. But that was an interesting fight. And then obviously the main event. Jacob went very hard on Jiří Prochazka this week. He sucks. This guy's trash. Went very hard on Jiří. Like, insanely hard. And turns out, Jacob didn't look that bad. Jiří was almost finished in the first round. Straight up finished in the first round. Dude got dropped with a extended left hook with a couple of seconds left, literally saved by the bell. Just to come out in the second round and get finished with a head kick. And I love it. What I will say is Jacob and I had a healthy debate. After the fights, we left, we got some pizza, and at dinner, eating the pizza, Jacob was insisting Jiří sucks. And I was like, I get it, right? He's a very hittable guy. He moves for. I understand if you're not a Jiří fan, but that division needs Jiří Prochazka. The light heavyweight division is not an exciting division at all. Jamal Hill just got knocked out, turned into a heel online, being a crybaby. Ankalaev probably should be the champion of that division, and maybe in the future, one of the most boring fighters on the entire roster. That entire division is living and dying by Alex Pereira. But if Alex Pereira doesn't have a rival, the light heavyweight division sucks. You need a rival. You need rivalries. You need people to develop plot lines, and Jiří Prochazka is that guy. Yeah, he's 0-2 against Alex. So is he going to fight for a title again? No, of course not. But here's my perfect world. Alex smoked that fucking guy. There's not much to talk about in that fight. Alex smoked him. Literally smoked him. Like, looked great doing it. Good job. Congratulations. Love it. Here's my best case scenario. And Joe Rogan talked about this in the post-fight speech. And the arena went nuts when he did. We all, seems like, want Alex Pereira to go up to heavyweight. Win the belt there. Become the first 3-division champion in the history of the UFC. I want to see that. I'm assuming you want to see that. I would rather see Alex go up to heavyweight and fight at heavyweight than fight Ankalaev. Because if he fights Ankalaev, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. And it's going to be boring, and it's going to suck, and it's stupid. Don't destroy the plot lines. Don't destroy your superstars. Have him move up to heavyweight. Develop it. Like, give him somebody he could smoke. Dontel Mays. Give him somebody that will stand there that he can knock out. Let him knock that guy out. Then give him a heavyweight title fight. And let's see if Alex Pereira can be the first 3-division UFC champion. Guys, thanks for watching this video. You don't have the pretty graphics you normally have. It's a different situation. I'm here in Vegas blinking a ton because my eyes are dry as hell, and you watched this entire video. So thank you so much. If you're a premium member, thank you so much. If you are here in Vegas and you came up to us this weekend, thank you so much. I had what felt like 100 people. It was probably 60 come up to us. You're Angelo? Can I get a picture? You're Jacob? Can I get a picture? What happened in the very first fight of the night? Vinicius Oliveira, the very first fight of the night. The arena is 90% empty. I'm sitting there. Jacob's sitting there. There's no one anywhere near us. Vinicius, the tides are turning. Vinicius kicks Ricky Simone so hard that his own shin is destroyed. And we hear somebody yell, "Lock of the week fading." That's the environment we're in. Live, in real life, we have people yelling about lock of the week in the arena. I can't thank you guys enough for all of that, for all the engagement. Thank you so much. If you want to be a premium member, go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. We're destroying. It's nuts. The value we give you is nuts. It's $10 an entire month. You get the picks, the bets, the tools, and everything else. $10 a month. If you're not a premium member, thank you for watching. We still appreciate you. I got to go to bed. I got to get on a flight in the morning, and I got to head back. But I promise you, The UFC Denver video will be up for you, ready to go, and I already have bets on that card.